Chief Fasulo, we've known each other for a number of years. The last time, actually, I believe you were the captain over at the Convention Center Area Command, and you're dealing with problems on the Strip and casinos and things like that. Traded in that. Now you're deputy chief and dealing with criminals and those incarcerated. So what are some of the biggest differences? What you're taking care of now, responsible for the Detention Services Division?
Well, to start with, the amount of personnel that are underneath me. When I was at the station, I had roughly 200, and now I have gone to 1,100. And that 1,100 is commissioned civilian employees, and then all the contractors that we have that come in and out of the jail on a regular basis. So it's about 700 commissioned, a couple hundred civilian, and then the rest is all the contract employees, whether it's food, laundry, construction, maintenance. That all has to come in and out of that facility on a regular basis because it runs just like a hotel.
It really does, not to be too flip about it, but obviously you're getting guests in and releasing guests out just much like a hotel. You run it much like a hotel then in some ways.
Yep, we do. And the things that we do that are a little bit different than a hotel that makes it a little bit more complicated is that we have to provide health care, you have to provide dental care, eye care, you have to cut people's hair, you have to feed them 3 times a day, and we're responsible for all of that. Whereas, a normal hotel is just a room and you go on your own for all the rest of the stuff, but we have to provide all that.
Give me some numbers, Chief. What type of population, what numbers of people are incarcerated on a daily basis?
Right now, and it fluctuates day to day, obviously, but right now, as we speak, there's about 1,000 people that are sentenced to the detention center, which means that if they get sentenced to anything less than a year, they're going to be inside our facility. If they're sentenced more than a year, they normally go to the prison that's run by the state. The rest of our population, which is another 2,000-ish, is people that are either awaiting sentencing, awaiting to go to trial, or we're holding them for another jurisdiction.
Tell me about some of these other locations or some of the other duties. It isn't just the main CCDC downtown as far as what you're responsible for, correct?
No, we have to hold any prisoner or any inmate that any other jurisdiction in the county arrests. If you arrest somebody for a misdemeanor committed in the county within the confines of the county jurisdiction, then that person would be brought to the detention center. If you arrest for a misdemeanor crime in the city jurisdiction of Las Vegas, then they are taken to the city jail. But all gross misdemeanors and all felonies, regardless of where they're taken into custody or where the crime occurred, they come to the Clark County Detention Center. So even federal prisoners can be housed there. NHP will book there, Metro obviously, marshals, any law enforcement entity that books or takes an inmate into custody for those types of crimes will come to the detention center.
What about house arrest? Is the Detention Services Division responsible for those individuals also?
Yes, we do. We have about 250 to 280 people on house arrest right now.
What type of challenges does that pose to you and the folks that work for you?
Well, they have to be monitored, so I have to have a staff in place that can monitor these people that are on house arrest. They have an electronic bracelet, just like what you hear on TV, and it goes around the ankle. And I have a certain number of staff that monitor a caseload, and they have a certain number of people assigned to house arrest assigned to them. So they're responsible for making sure they check in with them, that they're abiding by the rules that the judge has set out for their house arrest. And then if they don't abide by those rules, then they'll go out and actually pick them back up and put them back inside the jail.
Looking at your numbers for the past couple of years, you've been around the 3,000 inmate mark on pretty much on a daily basis. The past few months, it seems to have spiked up well over 4,000. Why is that there been such an increase lately, Chief, with the number of incarcerated?
There's a lot of things that are affecting the population, and that's one of the things that I've tackled since I got promoted and went over there, is finding out what those spikes are coming from. And there's a multitude of things that are addressing those. One is that we're actually arresting more serious type criminal. When you get arrested for a misdemeanor, you may not be doing a significant amount of time, but when you're getting arrested for violent felony or some other serious type of felony crimes, you're going to go through more of a criminal justice process, through court, through trial, whatever. You may not be getting that plea bargain and then sentenced to a fine or probation. You may actually have to stay incarcerated and ultimately end up going to prison. So we are down 5,500 misdemeanor arrests as of about a month ago, year to date. But our felony crime bookings are up over 2%. And that 2% doesn't seem like a whole lot in a numerical scale, but when you start looking at how it affects the jail population, it's big. The other thing that affects our population are people that are awaiting sentencing, or people that are awaiting for a competency exam for mental health, which they have to go to Carson City to do that. There are a certain number of people in the jail that the judges are ordering them to get a competency test, so we can only fly 6 at a time up to Carson City to do that, because that's the only facility that where Lakes Crossing is. And then we take 6 up every week, and then we bring 6 back. So we have a schedule where we're already booked or scheduled out through December to get people up there. So we're housing these people until they get up there and they have their competency review. Then we bring them back down. Now they're able to go through trial if they're ruled to be competent, and they go through the normal rest of their criminal justice process. That's one portion. The other portion is people that have been found guilty, convicted, and now they're awaiting sentencing by district court. District court can't sentence people to prison without getting a pre-sentence investigation report. And what that report does is it lets the attorneys know, and it lets the judge know, and parole and probation, and the prison know the recommendations for the judge to set that sentencing. And a lot of things that are contained in that pre-sentence investigation affects how that inmate will be classified when they go to prison. So for example, if you are considered a gang member, if it's documented that you are a gang member, well, obviously, if you are a certain gang member, we're not going to house you in a rival gang, either in our jail or in prison. And those things will come out in those pre-sentencing reports. What also is contained in there is parole and probation's recommendation for the sentence, the minimums and the maximums. And then the judges make their decisions based on those reports, and then input from the attorneys, both sides, the DA and the public defender. State law, they have 45 days to get those done. But because PMP has struggled with getting them done because they had a lack of manpower to write those reports, so they're behind the 8 ball a little bit. So their average amount of time getting those done is longer than what they probably would be the best case scenario. So we're keeping those people in our jail a little bit longer. So when you combine that along with the mental health issue, and then you look at the fact that we have a growing economy here, we're having a lot more tourism coming in. There was 40 million people that came to this city last year. It was a record for the first time in over 5 years that we had that many people come. And you look at what we stand for now down on the Strip, and we have a lot more people that are getting booked for some serious stuff. So not to correlate that everybody that comes to Las Vegas is going to jail, that's not the case, but it's just pure mathematics. The more people that you have coming into town, the bigger the city grows, the more that we have going on, the more people that potentially could end up getting arrested if crime rate does go up a little bit. So those are probably the biggest issues that are affecting the population right now.
How could your problems be solved? Money, manpower, facilities? What would you need to make your operation run as smooth as possible, Chief?
Well, obviously, if the population doesn't decrease, then you need additional manpower. And if your population doesn't decrease, then you need a bigger facility. Now, if you're not going to get a decrease in your population, then you are going to need more money to get that bigger facility, and you're going to need to get additional staff. So we're running an academy right now. We've got 14 COs in that academy. They'll graduate here pretty soon, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. I need double that right now. That's how many positions we're down. We would need one of the things that I'm looking at is putting together a process within the jail that studies what our population is on a regular basis, almost daily. Looks at the things that are affecting the population, and then putting that information in the people's hands that can make an effect on that population, if that makes sense. Almost like a hotel manager type mentality. It sounds easy, but it's not, because you need somebody that understands the workings of the jail operationally. You need somebody that understands and can build relationships with the criminal justice community and can work within that environment. And you also need to have somebody that is operationally sound from the policing aspect of the department as well, because everything that the cops do on the street ultimately affects what goes on in the jail. Everything that the court does ultimately affects what goes on in the jail. Everything that the DA does or the public defenders ultimately affects what goes on inside the jail. So it's not easy putting that type of person or process together, but we're getting there. We're working on it.
And finally, Chief, you've only been on the job for a few months, but you've been around Metro obviously for a good long time and probably had some pretty good ideas of what went on in detention services. Is there anything that surprises you or anything that's amazing you that ever since you've taken over this post helming detention services?
Yeah, I will tell you that, you know, I grew up on the department as a cop, and I was focused on arresting somebody, taking them down to the jail, you drop them off, and you don't really know what happens to them after you get them booked into jail. But now seeing it the other side of it, you come full circle, and it would amaze people to see the operation logistically of what goes inside that jail every day. Everything from people that need kidney dialysis to people that are paraplegic to transporting hundreds of people to different courts all across the community every single day. And that starts at like 3 o'clock in the morning because they get that list of people that have to be in court. They got to get them ready. Sometimes if they're in a trial, they have to be changed clothes. We got to get them into a suit and a tie. And then you've got the food that's got to get done. You have to provide bedding and laundry services for all those people on a daily basis. And then the maintenance of the facility. And to see all of that work at one time was far more than I ever expected, just being on the outside of it the whole entire time. So from that aspect, it's been a pretty big eye-opening experience for me.
All right, we sure appreciate you spending some time and demystifying detention services for us.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you,
sweat.
Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.